Alright, alright. You notice the CP productions, right?
Zeusudra, in Mesopotamian religion, rough counterpart to the biblical Noah, a survivor of a God-sent flood. When the gods had decided to destroy humanity with a flood, the god Enki, Akkadian Ea, who did not agree with the decree, revealed it to Zeusudra, a man well known for his humility and obedience. Zeusudra did as Enki commanded him and built a huge boat, in which he successfully rode out the flood. Afterward, he prostrated himself before the gods Anu, and Enlil, Bel, and, as a reward for living a godly life, Zeusudra was given immortality.
Brought to you by
International pimp player. Everybody daddy Curly P and back up a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, it's your international pimp player. Daddy, everybody's. You know how we do it. Curly P, baby. Listen, my boy over there at SmooveHouseTV, Miss Unique and Motivational Poet, they hit me up and said, hey man, we need you to put your pimpin' on the commercial for it. And I said, you know what, Playboy? Hey, the best one to do it is me. I'm Curly P. You understand? So listen, me being who I am, Curly P, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go ahead on and bless him. You know, so over there at the Miss Unique and Motivational Poet Show, them boys always doing good things. Give me a minute. They always doing good things like good shows and, you know, you got the Motivational Poet Show. Hey, don't worry about what I got on swimming shoes. Hey, get your... Y'all don't worry about that. I'm over here watching Rockadika kid. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we got the Motivational Poet Show. We got the Miss Unique Show. We got the Miss Unique and Motivational Poet Show. Hell, we got Freestyle Friday, you know what I'm saying? We even got the Hookah Lounge on Saturdays, you know what I'm saying? But we got a lot going on. Hey, where my coffee at? Okay, I need my coffee. I need it. Give me my coffee, okay? Because I'm not going to keep on, every time I come over here, y'all always... Yeah, so anyways, sorry about that, y'all. But we got a lot going on. We got songs out, you know what I'm saying? They got Don't Know What You Are Feeling. They got a lot of songs doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? So make sure y'all tune in. YouTube, okay? Monday through Saturday. Y'all trying to tell y'all to come on and get what you need over here at Smooth Out TV. You're not listening to... Hey, bring it... Hey, you know what? I'm gonna... Give me my doggone coffee. You know, hey, okay. I'm gonna show you who I am right on after this. Just keep playing with me. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead on this line. Smooth Out TV, baby, on YouTube. Check us out. Hey, give me my...
Flood myth, also called deluge myth, any of numerous mythologies in which a flood destroys a typically disobedient original population. Myths of a great flood, the deluge, are widespread over Eurasia and America. The flood, with a few exceptions, is an expiation by the water, after which a new type of world is created. The account of the deluge, Genesis 6:11 to 9:19, features Noah as the hero of the flood story. In his account, Noah is represented as the patriarch who, because of his blameless piety, was chosen by God to perpetuate the human race after his wicked contemporaries had perished in the flood. A righteous man, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, Genesis 6:8. Thus, when God beheld the corruption of the earth and determined to destroy it, he gave Noah divine warning of the impending disaster and made a covenant with him, promising to save him and his family. Noah was instructed to build an ark, and in accordance with God's instructions he took into the ark male and female specimens of all the world's species of animals, from which the stocks might be replenished. Consequently, according to this narrative, the entire surviving human race descended from Noah's 3 sons and their wives. The religious meaning of the flood is conveyed after Noah's heroic survival, having safely landed on Mount Ararat. He then built an altar on which he offered burnt sacrifices to God, who then bound himself to a pact never again to curse the earth on humanity's account. God then set a rainbow in the sky as a visible guarantee of his promise in this covenant. God also renewed his commands given at creation, but with two changes: humankind could now kill animals and eat meat, and murder would be punished by humans. Despite the tangible similarities of the Mesopotamian mythologies and the biblical flood, the biblical story has a unique Hebraic perspective. In the Babylonian stories, the destruction of the flood was the result of a disagreement among the gods, while in Genesis it resulted from the moral corruption of human history. The primitive polytheism of the Mesopotamian versions is transformed in the biblical story into an affirmation of the omnipotence and benevolence of the one righteous God. Mesopotamian flood myths. According to Genesis, an ancient Sumerian religious epic, deities fashioned humankind from clay to cultivate the ground, care for flocks, and perpetuate the worship of the gods. Cities were soon built, but, for some reason, the gods determined to destroy humankind with a flood. Enki Akkadian, Ea, who did not agree with the decree, revealed it to Ziusudra, a man well known for his humility and obedience. Ziusudra did as Enki commanded him and built a huge boat, in which he successfully rode out the flood. Afterward, he prostrated himself before the gods Anu, and Enlil, and, as a reward for living a godly life, Ziusudra was given immortality. In the related Babylonian Gilgamesh epic, Utnapishtim and his wife are the survivors of the mythological flood, having preserved human and animal life in the great boat he built. The couple were then deified by the god Enlil as a reward for heeding the divine instruction to build an ark. Another Mesopotamian myth is the story of Atrahasis, a wise man who was saved from the flood after being warned by one of the gods to build a ship to save himself. This story is preserved in fragmentary Old Babylonian and Assyrian versions. These Babylonian mythologies have close affinities with the biblical story of the flood and are the source of such features as the building and provisioning of the ark, its flotation, and the dispatch of the raven and dove, as well as the part played by the human protagonist in the biblical account. Other flood myths. In Greek legend, Deucalion, the son of Prometheus, the creator of humankind, is the equivalent of Noah. When Zeus, the king of the gods, resolved to destroy all humanity by a flood, Deucalion constructed an ark in which, according to one version, he and his wife rode out the flood and landed on Mount Parnassus. According to Indian flood mythology, the man Manu was the sole survivor of the Great Flood, combining the characteristics of the Hebrew Bible figures of Noah and Adam, the first man. The Shatapatha Brahmana recounts how Manu was warned by a fish, to whom he had done a kindness, that a flood would destroy the whole of humanity. He therefore built a boat, as the fish advised. When the flood came, he tied this boat to the fish's horn and was safely steered to a resting place on a mountain top. When the flood receded, Manu, the sole human survivor, performed a sacrifice, pouring oblations of butter and sour milk into the waters. After a year, there was born from the waters a woman who announced herself as the daughter of Manu. These two then became the ancestors of a new human race to replenish the earth. In the Mahabharata, great epic of the Bharata dynasty, the fish is identified with the god Brahma, while in the Puranas, ancient lore, it is Matsya, the fish incarnation of Lord Vishnu. The Aztec believed that 4 worlds had existed before the present universe. Those worlds, or suns, had been destroyed by catastrophes, and humankind had been entirely wiped out at the end of each sun. The 4th sun, Naui-Atl, for water, ended in a gigantic flood that lasted 52 years. Only 1 man and 1 woman survived, sheltered in a huge cypress, but they were later turned to dogs. Noah. Noah, also spelled No, the hero of the biblical flood story in the Old Testament book of Genesis, the originator of vineyard cultivation, and, as the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the representative head of a Semitic genealogical line. A synthesis of at least 3 biblical source traditions, Noah is the image of the righteous man made party to a covenant with Yahweh, the God of Israel, in which nature's future protection against catastrophe is assured. Noah appears in Genesis 5:29 as the son of Lamech and 9th in descent from Adam. In the story of the deluge, Genesis 6:11 to 9:19, he is represented as the patriarch who, because of his blameless piety, was chosen by God to perpetuate the human race after his wicked contemporaries had perished in the flood. A righteous man, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, Genesis 6:8. Thus, when God beheld the corruption of the earth and determined to destroy it, he gave Noah divine warning of the impending disaster and made a covenant with him, promising to save him and his family. Noah was instructed to build an ark, and in accordance with God's instructions he took into the ark male and female specimens of all the world's species of animals, from which the stocks might be replenished. Consequently, according to this narrative, the entire surviving human race descended from Noah's 3 sons. Such a genealogy sets a universal frame within which the subsequent role of Abraham, as the father of Israel's faith, could assume its proper dimensions. The story of the flood has close affinities with Babylonian traditions of apocalyptic floods in which Utnapishtim plays the part corresponding to that of Noah. These mythologies are the source of such features of the biblical flood story as the building and provisioning of the ark, its flotation, and the subsidence of the waters, as well as the part played by the human protagonist. Tablet 11 of the Gilgamesh epic introduces Utnapishtim, who, like Noah, survived cosmic destruction by heeding divine instruction to build an ark. You may have heard, or even used, the terms religion and spirituality interchangeably. But while they aren't diametric opposites, neither are they the same. Learn how to tell the difference between religion and spirituality. For thousands of years, humanity has passionately pursued the truth with a capital T, the ultimate answers to life and the universe. This perennial knowledge constitutes the answers to what are often called the soul questions. What is the meaning of life? Historically, from the perspective of the soul, there have been 2 foundational routes to discover these truths: religion and spirituality. Although they have many similarities and there is a relationship between the 2, there are differences between religion and spirituality. Religion? By definition, religion is a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices, the service and worship of God or the supernatural. Spirituality. Spirituality, on the other hand, connotes an experience of connection to something larger than you, living everyday life in a reverent and sacred manner. Or as Christina Pahalski, MD, leader in trying to incorporate spirituality into healthcare, puts it, spirituality is the aspect of humanity that refers to the way individuals can express meaning and purpose and the way they experience their connectedness to the moment, to self, to others, to nature, and to the significant or sacred. Origins of religions and spirituality. Religion? Religions are most often based upon the lives, teachings, and beliefs of a historical or archetypal figure, for example, Christ, Buddha, Moses, Krishna, Muhammad. The details of their lives as holy or highly evolved beings have been carried to us across the mists of time through oral tradition and written scriptures. These figures are the subject of worship and devotion and form the foundation of religious practices and rituals in a community. Spirituality. By contrast, spirituality is more often based upon the practical application of the founder's teachings. Spiritual aspirants heed the advice of Japanese poet Matsuo Basho: do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought. The lines blur. If you feel these definitions get blurry and cross into each other's territory, you're not alone. For example, you may know people who consider themselves spiritual, but not religious. Conversely, there can be individuals who are devoutly religious but are not what most would consider deeply spiritual. Let's try to clear things up by taking a closer look at the most defining differences between religious and spiritual paths. Bear in mind that there are no absolutes in these distinctions. They are merely general markers meant to better explore the qualities between two equally valid approaches to seeking the truth. Objective versus subjective experience. Religion, on the whole, a formal religion is often an objective experience. In other words, there is usually a greater focus on the externals. Houses of worship, for example, a church. Books of scripture. Eternal rituals. Observances. This is the equivalent of object referral, in which your attention is placed upon the objects in your experience. Spirituality. Spirituality, however, leans more towards self-referral or the internalization of your awareness of your soul. Spirituality is an inward journey that involves a shift in awareness rather than some form of external activity. As such, spirituality is much more about inner understanding than outer worship. This is not to say that worship is not a part of spirituality, it's a matter of where the devotion and worship are directed. To an external practice, object, or figurehead. To your soul, higher self, or divinity within. Organized versus formless. Religion? One of the hallmarks of religion is its organization. It is a structured, frequently rule-based construct that to some degree governs the behavior of its members. Moral rules, laws, and doctrines, as well as specific codes and criteria, create the organized structure that contains the religion's specific belief system. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. In previous, more uncertain times, the rules and dogma of organized religion helped to give society a sense of certainty and helped to guide and comfort those whose faith was lacking. Spirituality. Spirituality, though, breaks free from the restrictions and rigid structure sometimes associated with traditional religion. The spiritual aspirant recognizes that he or she is on a pathless path of self-discovery. They are following not a set of external rules, but their own inner call to spirit. In this way, spirituality can sometimes feel like a rebellious act of going solo and leaving the tribe, very much in the spirit of American philosopher and poet Ralph Waldo Emerson when he said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." Traditional versus evolutionary approach. Religion? Due to their centuries to millennia-old histories, religions are by nature often deeply rooted in tradition, ritual, creed, and doctrine. Religious institutions conservatively guard their practices and values, holding rigidly to the past and the original interpretations of the founders' teachings. This is understandable in that all religions wish to preserve the essence of their teachings, so they may be accurately transmitted through history. Spirituality. By comparison, spirituality is often less focused on the rigidly traditional approach and often favors an evolutionary mentality. This refers to both a more flexible and adaptive mindset toward core teachings of the great wisdom traditions, but also reflects the understanding that, as the name implies, spiritual growth is an evolutionary process. Spirituality embraces change and the evolution of consciousness. With spiritual practice, ideas and interpretations change as individuals, societies, and the world move forward. Exclusive versus inclusive. Religion? Traditional religious beliefs, sometimes based upon rigid interpretations of key teachings, can create an exclusive worldview that isolates those who may not share their views or interpretations. Sadly, this religious in-group mentality can be used to justify the exclusion of minorities or those deemed unworthy of God's favor. Spirituality. Spirituality makes no such distinctions. Instead, it favors an inclusive approach. In the recognition that pure spirit is a unifying force, no one is left out. You are part of the universal hologram, all gods and goddesses in disguise. As Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 11, "As men approach me, so I receive them. All paths, Arjuna, lead to me." In other words, from a spiritual perspective, no one has a monopoly on the truth. All are welcome in God's eyes. Belief versus spiritual experience. Religion? At its core, religion is about faith. That is to say, belief in something based upon unconditional acceptance of the religion's teachings. Unlike the scientific worldview, religions don't require evidence to validate their claims. Through religion, you are taught to have faith in God or the scriptures as being the infallible and ultimate truth of reality. Acceptance and surrender to the divine are taught as the path that leads to ultimate salvation. Spirituality. Spirituality doesn't dismiss faith, however, it often leans more heavily on direct experience of the soul or divinity. Spiritual practices such as meditation, yoga, silence, and contemplation allow you to make conscious contact with more expanded states of consciousness, thus helping to experientially validate the teachings rather than accepting them on faith alone. You know something because you have tasted the experience yourself and have allowed it to resonate, as opposed to taking the word of another. Fear versus love. Religion? Despite the best of intentions, religions can sometimes contain a subtle, or not so subtle, undercurrent of fear woven into their teachings. The concepts of original sin, divine judgment, God's wrath, or eternal punishment can create a mental environment burdened in worry and anxiety over your worthiness and whether your actions will result in divine retribution or karmic punishment. Your fate in the afterlife can loom like a specter in the back of your mind, subtly influencing your thoughts and behavior. Spirituality. By contrast, spirituality typically discards the vestiges of fear and worry in favor of a more loving, compassionate approach to life and death. Spirituality embraces a consciousness-based worldview that supports all human beings on their path to awakening in unconditional love and kindness. Your choices and behavior are guided not by fear of punishment, but rather by a desire to end suffering and create a peaceful and loving world for all. As you can see, there are noticeable distinctions between spirituality versus religion. However, these comparisons aren't meant to be absolutes or an attempt to polarize one against the other. Religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs differ in the ways in which they are practiced. However, each practice serves as a vehicle to lead you closer to the truth you seek. Whichever path or combination of the two you follow is the personal and subjective expression of your journey of awakening. The Sumerians were an ancient civilization that emerged in southern Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, around 4000 BCE. They are credited with inventing the first writing system, cuneiform, as well as many other achievements in art, literature, mathematics, astronomy, and law. The Sumerians believed in a pantheon of gods and goddesses who ruled over various aspects of nature and human affairs. The Anunnaki were a group of deities in Sumerian mythology, who were said to be the offspring of An, the god of heaven, and Ki, the goddess of earth. The Anunnaki were associated with various functions, such as fertility, justice, war, and kingship. Some of the most prominent Anunnaki were Enki, the god of wisdom and water, Enlil, the god of wind and storms, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, and Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. There are many theories and speculations about the origin and nature of the Anunnaki. Some scholars suggest that they were based on historical rulers or priests who were deified by the Sumerians. Others propose that they were extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in ancient times and influenced human civilization. The Anunnaki are a group of ancient Mesopotamian deities who were worshipped by the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. They are said to be the offspring of An, the god of the sky, and Ki, the goddess of the earth. Some of the most prominent Anunnaki are Enlil, the god of air and chief of the pantheon, Ea, Enki, the god of water and wisdom, Ninkorsog, the mother goddess, Sin, Nana, the god of the moon, Shamash, Utu, the god of the sun, and Ishtar, Inanna, the goddess of love and war. The Anunnaki had various roles and functions in Mesopotamian mythology. In some texts, they are described as the creators and rulers of humanity, who decreed their fates and destinies. In other texts, they are associated with the underworld, where they acted as judges of the dead. They were also involved in cosmic conflicts and battles, such as the one between Marduk and Tiamat in the Babylonian creation epic Enuma Elish. The Anunnaki were not worshipped as a collective group, but rather as individual gods with their own cults and temples. They were depicted as anthropomorphic beings with horns, crowns, and splendid attire. They were believed to possess extraordinary powers and to live in heaven or in subterranean realms. The Anunnaki have fascinated scholars and enthusiasts for centuries, as they represent one of the oldest and most influential pantheons in human history. Their myths and legends have inspired many works of art, literature, and popular culture. The Sumerians and the Anunnaki are two fascinating topics in ancient Mesopotamian history and mythology. The Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations in the world, who lived in the region of southern Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, from about 4500 to 1750 BCE. They are credited with many inventions and achievements, such as writing, mathematics, astronomy, law, and agriculture. The Anunnaki were a class of gods in the Sumerian pantheon, who were believed to be the descendants of An, a god of heaven, and Ki, the goddess of earth. The name Anunnaki means princely seed or princely offspring in Sumerian. The Anunnaki had various roles and functions in Sumerian mythology, such as decreeing the fates of humans, judging the dead, and creating and destroying civilizations. Some people have speculated that the Anunnaki were not just mythical beings, but actually ancient aliens who visited Earth, and influenced human history. This idea was popularized by a Russian-born author named Zecharia Sitchin, who claimed that he had deciphered some of the Sumerian texts and found evidence of extraterrestrial intervention. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki came from a planet called Nibiru, which orbits the Sun every 3,600 years. He also claimed that the Anunnaki created humans by genetically modifying primitive hominids to serve as their slaves. However, most scholars and experts have rejected Sitchin's theories as pseudoscience and pseudo-history. They argue that his interpretations of the Sumerian texts are inaccurate, inconsistent, and unsupported by any archaeological or scientific evidence. They also point out that there is no mention of Nibiru, or any other planet beyond Pluto in any of the ancient Mesopotamian sources. The Sumerian creation myth is one of the oldest stories that describe how the world and humanity came to be. It is also known as the Eridu Genesis, because it was found on a clay tablet in the ancient city of Eridu, which was considered the first city by the Sumerians. The tablet is written in the Sumerian language and dates back to around 1600 BCE, but the story may be much older. According to the myth, in the beginning, there was only water, and the gods lived in heaven. The gods An, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag created the Sumerians and made them live in a paradise on earth, where they had everything they needed. The gods also created animals and plants and gave them names. The gods then decided to establish kingship on earth and chose 5 cities to be ruled by divine kings. These cities were Eridu, Bad Tibira, Larak, Sippar, and Shuruppak. However, after some time, the humans became too noisy and disturbed the gods' sleep. The gods were angry, and decided to destroy them with a great flood. Enki, the god of water and wisdom, felt sorry for the humans and warned one of them, Ziusudra, who was the king and priest of Shuruppak. Enki told Ziusudra to build a large boat and save his family and some animals and plants. Ziusudra aided Enki and built a boat. The flood came and lasted for 7 days and nights. The boat floated on the water until the sun god Utu appeared and Ziusudra opened a window. He then sacrificed an ox and a sheep to thank the gods for saving him. The gods An and Enlil saw Ziusudra and his boat, and were impressed by his piety. They granted him eternal life and made him live in a land called Dilmun, where the sun rises. The gods also promised never to send another flood to wipe out humanity again. The Sumerian creation myth is very similar to other flood stories that appear in later Mesopotamian texts, such as the Atrahasis epic and the Epic of Gilgamesh, as well as in the Bible, where Noah plays the role of Ziusudra. The myth reflects the Sumerians' view of their origins, their relationship with the gods, and their fear of natural disasters. It also shows their appreciation for their culture, civilization, and kingship.